Hi, I'm Michelle Glick, and I'm the Director of Development at the JCC of Mid-Westchester. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And if you didn't get a chance to join us, you can watch the video below. And it's not too late to support us. You can go to www.jccmw.org/donate. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you back at the J soon.
The JCC brings a place where people can go and have fun and be themselves, but also help out the community. And I think it's a place that gives them the opportunity to be that helping hand.
How long have I been involved with the JCC? A little over 2 years, directly as a member personally. Although my wife and I had come periodically earlier to attend some of the lectures.
I met with Karen Simmons, who was the camp director at the time, and just seemed like a super warm place for our, at the time, baby Jack to bake.
You know, I used to sit at home after my wife passed and my daughter got me interested. I was a little nervous. I'd be walking in, you know, I didn't know anybody. Walked in, I sat down, and I met some nice people.
I volunteer at Sunday Fun Day, which is a program for children with developmental disabilities. There's like 60 or so volunteers on a normal year, and we all just come and we get to spend time with the kids and work with them in different activities and help them grow their social skills.
We're super involved in the nursery school. We love it. Jack graduated from there. Danny's about to graduate and head off to kindergarten, and Aaron is just finishing up his 2's year. And being involved in like the family Shabbats that they've done over the years.
We have some nice speakers that come in. Somebody brings the speakers, a professor or somebody that's visiting, and he gives a talk. It was very nice.
The men's club is, comes under Jewish life and involves Jewish culture and values, but it's open to anyone. But I find it, just sometimes just being there, just listening, it was just a great experience, and it fit in with my day perfectly.
We are a mixed religion family, and we're actually looking for something very non-religious for their school experience. The way that the JCC introduces the Jewish religion really is more of a cultural thing, has been really nice, and it's been especially really nice for our family, where Dad gets involved in the Shabbat days and stuff like that. It's very inclusive, and that was something that's been really nice for us.
One of my favorite memories was my 3rd year as a volunteer, and I had come in with an apron that I had just started decorating. One of the kids, we were using paint that week, and they went over to me and they asked if it was okay if they could paint their hand and put a handprint on the apron. And the next week, a different kid asked if they could doodle something on the corner of it. And week after week, for the rest of the year that I was the art therapist, all the different kids would try and help me find different ways to decorate the apron. And I still have it at my house. I wear it whenever I do art projects, and it's a memory.
One of the best things about the way this has gone for us with each of the kids is that they've each just been so comfortable here, and having had Jack go through his first camp experience here and then his first classroom experience here, a lot of respects just kind of grow up here and have it become just sort of a natural place for him to be. That's just been really, really nice and really easy, and that's very much about the environment that's created here and the teachers who create that environment.
When Jack was in the 2's, there were all those JCC bomb threats, and the kids were in school, and I'll never forget getting that call. As a parent, you're so scared. The staff handled it. They had the kids out so fast. I'll never forget that.
I made a commitment to go, and that was my thing, to go to the men's club on Wednesday morning. If I'm alive, I'll be here.
There's something just in the act of sending your 3 kids, the things that are more precious to you than anything in the world, to school here is a sign of your faith and trust in place and the community that's established here.
It's definitely played a pivotal role in my life, and I think it does that for so many other people.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Salute to Superheroes. We hope our video inspired you to think more deeply about our theme. We often think about Spider-Man, Superman, and Wonder Woman as superheroes, flying from building to building, weaving webs to trap the bad guys, and saving the day. As a parent whose children grew up in the wake of September 11th, I taught them that the true heroes were the firemen and police officers who ran into the buildings to save people. And in 2020, we were reminded once again who the heroes are, the doctors, nurses, and all medical personnel who put themselves in harm's way for the sake of others. This year, the JCC teachers, coaches, security guards, facilities personnel, and office staff also took risks to ensure that our community not only survived, but thrived. While there is much uncertainty, the JCC remained open until the last moment it could, hoping to provide respite for those who needed it, and reopened earlier than many facilities in June, again to help the community as it rebounded from the early months of COVID. We also want to recognize the children of the JCC. They are our heroes too. They showed up each day with smiles on their faces. They laughed, and the sounds of their laughter enriched the JCC and filled the rooms with much-needed joy. Their worlds were rocked, and they adapted and showed inner strength like superheroes. We are so proud of these kids and look forward to recognizing them in May at their own celebration, details to come. And now it is my great honor to introduce the leader of our superheroes for the past 8 years, our superwoman, the CEO of the JCC of Midwestchester, Karen Kolodny.
Thank you, Gigi, and thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. A special thanks to Gigi Weissman, Jacques Steinberg, Sharon Weinstock, and Stephanie Kerwin for taking on the leadership of this virtual event. And a special thank you to Michelle Glick, our cherished Director of Development. They all ensured that while physically apart, we are all still together tonight. COVID reminded all of us how important interaction and community is to society. We need each other in ways we never imagined. This past year, we missed milestones and celebrations. We could not even mourn together. And yet, through all of this, the staff and leadership at the JCC made sure that children were cared for, seniors were not isolated, and working parents received the support they needed. We established summer scholarships for summer enrichment programs last summer, and we created a safe environment for children to go to school while they were school at home. We met the community's needs. I'm so proud to be part of an organization that looks forward, one that seeks to provide the services that we need, not only for what we believe we will need in 10 years, but how we can adapt and offer programs in just 10 days. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Jacques Steinberg, an author and longtime New York Times journalist who served on the board of the JCC of Midwestchester several years ago. He was part of the group that hired me, and I am indebted to him for the opportunity to lead this wonderful organization. We are thrilled that Jacques and his wife Sharon agreed to co-chair this event in honor of their good friend Greg Caldor. Jacques?
Thank you, Karen. And I will always feel proud that I was part of the board that brought you to the JCC 8 years ago. I'm also grateful to you and every other employee and volunteer at the JCC for all of your efforts during this past year. It was a year, as you know firsthand, like no other. Kids were home from school, parents were home from work, and while there were many opportunities for baking, arts and crafts, biking, running, and other exercise, there was also a massive storm that created extensive power outages in August, remember that? Along with a blizzard and a few other heavy snowstorms, with COVID, sadly, a constant for more than 13 months and counting. It's no surprise that studies have shown that many of us found distraction in an occasional glass of wine or cocktail. And as a proud friend of Greg's, I know that even before the pandemic, he was someone who liked to savor a cocktail. As we were thinking of ways to honor him, we thought it would be fun to reach out to my old friend and New York Times colleague Steve Reddycliffe. In addition to being a longtime editor at the Times, Steve has written the paper's Quiet Drink column. He's also the editor of the essential New York Times Book of Cocktails, which has more than 350 cocktail recipes and stories drawn from the pages of the New York Times, spanning many decades. Steve was kind enough to create a special cocktail in honor of Greg. We call it the Caldorpolitan, and I hope some of you are sipping on one as you tune in to the gala. Steve also created a mocktail for Karen, which we call the Karen, and I suspect some of you are enjoying it as well. Considering that Steve is quite literally one of the world's leading experts on the cocktail, I thought you all might enjoy learning a bit more about the cocktail from him, including about its history and some of his own favorites. We had a chance to catch up recently, and what follows are some excerpts from that conversation. So Steve Redicliffe, welcome to the JCC of Midwestchester.
Well, thanks very much. Happy to be here.
Oh, and I'm so pleased that you were able to create and sort of teach us those two drinks, the Calderpolitan and the Karen. And I also am a big fan of this book, the New York Times Book of Cocktails, the essential New York Times Book of Cocktails, and recommend it to our audience.
Well, thanks very much.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions in terms of what is your earliest memory of a cocktail, whether it was seeing your parents or another adult in your life sipping one, or perhaps your very first sip of a cocktail?
Well, I think the very first cocktail memory I have is my parents having a martini, which they did almost every night. That was the drink. It's the most famous cocktail that there is. And it continues to be that for a reason. It's a delicious cocktail. And my folks had it. I didn't really start drinking cocktails till later. I think basically people like cocktails when they're not in their teens or 20s. I think they tend to be associated with adult bars and good times when you're a little older. So I think my first drink was probably a martini as well, which it took me a while to really love them, which I do.
And when did it sort of become a point of expertise and fascination for you, the study of the cocktail, at least from a journalistic point of view?
I think over the last 20 years, there really was what people call a renaissance of cocktail making, appreciation for historic recipes, interesting ingredients. It was much more of a culinary ingredient, recipes, making something really fun and different. And that was rewarding, I would say, over the last 20 or 25 years. That is probably what's happened for a lot of people in this country, a new appreciation for cocktails and for making them. It's always a very pleasant task to make a drink that somebody else will like. I think I've enjoyed making them, from the traditional martini in Manhattan to more obscure drinks with more unusual ingredients.
Now, I was fortunate to have you be my editor at the New York Times in the arts section for many years, writing about television. And I realized in this conversation, I've broken one of our cardinal rules, which is to assume no knowledge. So for the uninitiated, what are the basic elements of a cocktail?
Well, the basic elements of a cocktail start with liquor. It's associated with liquor. That has changed a little over the last few years with non-alcoholic cocktails, which are also enjoying their own kind of renaissance and a period of great invention and creativity. Very delicious drinks for people who don't want an alcoholic drink. And that doesn't mean they're not great drinks, because they are. And I think that is a basic definition of a cocktail as a spirit. Traditionally, the basic cocktails, the martini and the Manhattan probably preceded the martini, 3 ingredients, basically. And now there are, of course, great cocktails with many more, but there's a great simplicity and balance to a 3-ingredient cocktail.
Yeah. I want to switch to the essential New York Times Book of Cocktails. And I actually want to start, if you'll indulge me, by reading a few sentences from your introduction. So you write, the Times, meaning the New York Times, was early into juleps, very early, late 1800s early. A story in September 1886 described its preparation, quote, "With her sleeves rolled up, the rosy granddaughter stirs sugar in a couple of tablespoonfuls of sparkling water, packs crushed ice to the top of the heavy cut glass goblet, pours in the mellow whiskey until an overthrow threatens, and then daintily thrusts the mint sprays into the crevices. You have to admit," this is you now writing, 129 years later, at least at that time, that sounds pretty great. talk a little bit about this project and specifically what it felt like to go back well over a century into the pages of the New York Times looking for recipes and features about the cocktail?
Well, it was enormously entertaining to learn about what people were drinking. A sidebar to that is how much they were drinking. Before Prohibition, I think cocktails were a sensation. They were just consumed in great quantities, whether those were juleps or punches, which were another early favorite in the United States. And so you find these interesting twists. Juleps they were the number one cocktail for decades. And just people couldn't get enough of them, and punches followed. And then you also find the evolution of the martini, the Manhattan, more whiskey-based drinks following the Manhattan. And it was a great kind of archaeological dig into the Times stories and coverage. And they covered it very enthusiastically. There were a great many stories about cocktails. And then, of course, Prohibition came, and there was a period where you didn't read anything about cocktails.
Mm-hmm. And take us right up to the present. If you were updating the book, which was published a couple of years ago, what are some of the things you would add to that new introduction?
I would definitely add more non-alcoholic cocktails. I think those have really assumed a fairly prominent place now among bartenders. I think also a lot of drinks with bitters, Amari from Italy and other places. People like bitter drinks. They're still popular. People are discovering them again, and those would be two places that I would probably add a chapter or two.
When historians look back on the pandemic, to what extent will the cocktail be part of the story that gets told? I mean, at least for some of us, it was something that helped get us through.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it reacquainted people with classic cocktails, especially those with ingredients that you could easily acquire and probably make use of. I think it probably hit the pause button on some cocktails that called for more ingredients, or more ingredients that you wouldn't necessarily use every day. And so I think when people are going back to bars, I think there'll be a renewed appreciation for a bartender making you a drink with ingredients you didn't have at home. But it was great fun, and I think a diversion for people to make a martini, an old fashioned, a Manhattan, a Negroni throughout the last 14 months.
But I'm sure for many of us, to your point, as we get vaccinated, as we are back out and about, I suspect that that first cocktail in a bar is going to taste especially sweet.
I think it's going to taste especially sweet because you're around other people and someone who is making something for you. That's their job.
Steve Redcliffe, thank you for writing the essential New York Times Book of Cocktails. Thank you for being such an integral part of our gala.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And with that, I'm going to throw to Ellen Reinheimer.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Reinheimer, and I am so proud to serve as president of the JCC. It is a joy to be a part of this evening of celebration for our JCC heroes, and a special honor to introduce my friend and past co-president of the board, Greg Kaldor. Greg creates a sense of community wherever he goes and wants every person to feel at home at the JCC, to find connections, friendship, and belonging in one place. Greg has been a board member for 9 years, stepped up as co-president from 2017 to 2020, and is now the chair of the Real Estate Committee. Greg is always open to a challenge, approaching his commitments with dedication, curiosity, a sense of humor, and his inclusive, laid-back, but get-it-done manner. And did I mention that working with Greg is a whole lot of fun? In addition to his work at the JCC, Greg volunteers at Year Up New York, where he was awarded the Omar Moody Mentorship Award. In addition, Greg is a member of the U.S. Soccer Federation New York Development Council, which helps soccer coaches improve their skills to develop talent in youth soccer. Greg Kaldor, a currency strategist, lives with his wife Ellen, a pediatric physical therapist in Larchmont, New York, and they have 3 children, Zoe, 22, Jeremy, 20, and Charlie, 17. I am so glad to call Greg a friend.
Dear friends, staff, and board of the JCC of Mid-Westchester. I am somewhat humbled to be honoured as a hero when I sit behind a desk all day, have mostly grown children, and my family's health situation has been relatively unscathed over the last 12 months. My fellow honoree, Karen Simmons, and all the staff of the JCC are the real heroes. Juggling safety of the JCC with their own families has been a gargantuan task, and there is no amount of thank you that can truly describe these sacrifices. Karen and all the staff and board, I simply say thank you. In reflecting on what to say for this event, I recalled a comment from a former boss of mine who frequently said, "We don't have enough difficult conversations." Well, over the last year, there have been plenty of difficult conversations. The board and staff have been challenged by many difficult conversations about how to keep the JCC operating and relevant during COVID, while also trying to think about the post-COVID world. Say what you will about the last 4 years in Washington. I am not sure we would be having this Zoom now had it not been for the Payroll Protection Plan, or PPP. Make no mistake, this has been a savior for this organization and many other nonprofits. Yet we are still waiting for a loosening in COVID restrictions so the JCC can be more impactful on the community. So it is such a great tribute to all the staff and board that the JCC reopened in July, supporting so many kids through nursery, dance, gymnastics, and swim. Now, we're exploring ways to expand given the complexities in our current space, and there is so much demand for what we do. While we see light at the end of the COVID tunnel, there is plenty to think about, plan, and execute. But there are optimistic times ahead. As I timed out as co-president, I took over as chair of the real estate committee. On this journey, I have learned about the recent evolution of the city of New Rochelle and been involved in conversation on how the JCC of Mid-Westchester can evolve as well, particularly as we see the increasing needs for programming around mental health, changing demographics, and the ever-changing needs of the community. 2010 seems so long ago when Ellen, Zoe, Jeremy, Charlie, and I moved from London to Larchmont. It seems so long ago that Sharon and Jack Steinberg and Ellen and I initially spoke about ways to give back. Who knew this would end up as a board member of the JCC and ultimately as co-president? I am very grateful to both of them for introducing me to the JCC family and all the work of the co-chairs of this evening at this event. Christina Uncle is an international soccer referee who has made it to the highest level in her profession. She is a FIFA referee. She recently tweeted, "You can choose to give back, or you can choose not to. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." As my wife, Ellen, and I think about tzedakah, and by this I mostly mean time and expertise, as well as money, this has become a more important theme to us in recent years. With Ellen's work as a pediatric physical therapist, treating kids with special needs, and in the last year by Zoom and FaceTime, plus her work with the Mamaroneck Schools Foundation, and my work with the US Soccer Federation and the JCC, we often find ourselves on simultaneous Zoom calls as we try to give back. So to our children, Zoe, Jeremy, and Charlie, I hope you see how we have tried to give back and in our own way, and I hope you see this as a lesson for yourselves and your children in the future. To the wider community seeing this Zoom tonight, everyone has passion, skills, and experiences that can help others. Join a nonprofit board like the JCC or a committee in an area where you can add value. And give financially to the community to the extent you can. Finally, I have thought long and hard on a worthy tribute to Karen Kolodny, and it's hard to say a few words just because she has done so much. This JCC is so much a better place than when she arrived. But I also think of the many challenges faced and the many difficult conversations had during her tenure. It's a long list. However, I have been blessed to work so closely in recent years, and I am blessed to call her a friend, and obviously wish her well in the future. To all of you who joined tonight from the UK, the US and Australia, Ellen and I thank you for the support and love. Thank you.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Fire, fire, special light, I'm gonna let it shine. Police officer, special light, they're gonna let it shine. Heroes have a special light, they're gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Doctors have a special light, they're gonna let it shine. Nurses have a special light, they're gonna let it shine. Heroes have a special light, they're gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Teachers have a special light, they're gonna let it shine. Mommies have a special light, they're gonna let it shine. Daddies have a special light, they're gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I have a special light, I'm gonna let it shine. I have a special light, I'm gonna let it shine. I have a special light, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Kerwin. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a proud board member of the JCC and the JCC Nursery School. I've had the pleasure of knowing Karen Simmons since 2012 when my oldest child, Emery, was in the 2s at the J. Since then, I've had 2 other children, Thomas and Ryan, graduate from this wonderful program. I cannot remember a time when Karen did not have a smile on her face or a positive attitude. Karen was a highly requested 3s teacher when, in 2015, the then director of the JCC Nursery School relocated out of state somewhat unexpectedly. Karen Simmons immediately came to my mind as a successor. Clearly, I was not alone in thinking this. Once she was appointed the director of the nursery school, she exceeded expectations. Not only was Karen the nursery school director, but she was also the director of the highly successful summer camp. Karen worked tirelessly, wearing both director hats. Karen is a modern-day superhero. She embodies selflessness, humility, and grace under pressure. When COVID forced the world to shut down, Karen continued to put children first, creating a Zoom nursery school program second to none. At a time when our families needed a hero, she was there. Thank you, Karen. It's an honor and a privilege to introduce you this evening.
I am thrilled and humbled to be honored as Wonder Woman at this year's JCC of Midwestchester's Gala. The JCC has been a part of my family for over 20 years, and this is my 18th year as a staff member. My career has taken many paths at the J, but currently this is my 6th year as nursery school director, and it is an honor and privilege to serve in this position. As we have all learned from this past year, life throws many curveballs and takes you on many unanticipated journeys. I began my career in education as a high school guidance counselor, never anticipating working with students under the age of 13. After marrying my husband, Stuart, of almost 27 years and having 2 amazing children, Scott and Brian, I began my relationship with the JCC with a Mommy and Me yoga class, and the rest is history. My children are both alumni of the nursery school and summer camp. Each worked as a camp counselor, enjoyed the fitness center, and now Brian, my youngest, is both an assistant teacher and assistant camp director. I can truly say the JCC has been a very important part of my family, and I am confident this relationship will continue. I never would have guessed that when I first wheeled my infant boys through the doors of the J that I would be here at this point. I have walked the halls as a new mommy, parent of both students and campers, teacher, counselor, camp director, and now nursery school director. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate my fellow honoree, Greg Caldor. Over the years, I have been able to celebrate many milestones at the JCC with Greg. I thank him for his service to the J, and I know we will share many more celebrations together. I also want to take a moment to salute Karen Kolodny, our executive director. She has taken us through a very difficult year at the JCC due to COVID-19. Thank you for seeing us through such dark times. Thank you for the lessons your leadership has taught me. I believe we have learned much from each other, and I wish you well in your future endeavors. Every superhero needs a partner. I am lucky enough to have a community. There is a superhero in all of us. We just had to put on our masks instead of capes this year. To my nursery school family, which includes staff, parents, and children, as well as my Tour Tomorrow colleagues, I honor you today. The commitment and courage you have shown is beyond what words can express. Your resiliency and trust has been my strength. To quote the indestructible Wonder Woman, quote, I used to want to save the world, to end war and bring peace to mankind, but then I glimpsed the darkness that lives within their light, and I learned that inside every one of them there will always be both, a choice each must make for themselves, something no hero will ever defeat. And now I know that only love can truly save the world, so I stay, I fight, and I give for the world I know can be, end quote. Stay happy, healthy, and hopeful.
Karen, thank you so much for your hard work, creativity, and leadership the past 18 years. We're truly indebted to you for your service to the JCC and for taking care of hundreds, if not thousands, of children, and no more so than in this bewildering last year. If you think about it, an unlikely hero during these unnerving times is a technology platform, Zoom. Who would have thought a little over a year ago that Zoom would connect us for Passover Seders, B'nai Mitzvot, weddings, birthdays, and sadly, even funerals and shivas? We conducted business meetings and classes and even shared happy hours, all virtually via Zoom. Life as we know it will likely never be quite the same because Zoom has transformed our world. And like many silver linings from the pandemic, I would argue that our experience with Zoom has taught us that going forward, for a variety of reasons, there may well be meetings and other work sessions that, as it turns out, can be handled far more efficiently and effectively via Zoom or other remote platforms. To explore this subject in a bit more depth, it's now my pleasure to introduce Andrew Brandman, Senior Vice President of Financial Services of Salesforce. Andrew is a friend and colleague of Harry Moseley, who is the Global Chief Information Officer of Zoom. Harry has been inducted into CIO Magazine's Hall of Fame and is recognized as one of the world's top 100 CIOs by Computer World. He serves on multiple boards, and we're fortunate to have him as a neighbor here in Westchester and as a friend to the JCC. Harry and Andrew, take it away.
Good evening, Mid-Westchester JCC. I'm Andrew Brandman, Senior Vice President in the Office of the CEO at Salesforce, and I am so excited tonight to be here with Harry Moseley, CIO of Zoom, and friend of mine for nearly 30 years. Is that right? 30 years?
It's got to be at least 30 years. Feels a lot longer.
It does feel a whole lot longer. Harry, I'm excited to be hosting this conversation with you tonight. I can't believe it has been a year, over a year.
14 months.
14 months since you and I have actually been together. This is the first time we're together. And the last time we were together, we were in Davos. A lot has changed since then. What happened
when we all left Davos, what happened?
Yeah, it's kind of, in some ways, Andrew, it feels like we left Davos yesterday, but in other ways, it feels like that was kind of like we were in Davos. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I always remember that. It's like it was, I think it was the 25th of January, 2020. Taxiing down the runway, out to the runway at Zurich Airport. I was reading on a Sun newspaper, China was beginning to shut down. Schools were beginning to close. The world was beginning to grind to a halt, country by country. I think it was China and Japan back then. And I pulled up the newspaper, put it into the pocket in front of me, and said out loud, "There must be something we can do." With that, the woman sitting next to me said, "Were you saying something to me?" And I said, "No, sorry, I was just thinking out loud." And she said, "What were you thinking?" And I was thinking, I was like, with all this quarantine that's going on around the world, schools shutting down, the economy shutting down, government shutting down, there must be something we can do. So, well, who is we? It's like, I said, my company. And she said, "Well, what do you do?" And so I told her about Zoom, video communication. So what were you thinking? I was like, well, if you had one ask, what would it be? I said, well, I think I should talk to somebody at the World Health Organization. And she goes, "I think I can help."
Who was it?
She was the Chief Innovation Officer for the United Nations.
Wow, that is incredible.
Then you fast forward. Now it's Monday afternoon. I'm on a call with the World Health Organization talking about lockdown. At that time, they were doing like 200 global calls a day with, pharma companies, healthcare organizations, manufacturing companies, heads of countries, heads of state, etc., all around the world. Several calls, every 6 hours, trying to figure out what to do, and it was pretty chaotic.
So you basically are saying that you help start collaboration for the WHO to help solve get to the end game. Yeah. Get to the end game. So what happened next?
Yeah, so got back, and obviously, as I said, sort of everything was starting to grind to a halt. Education was something that we quickly pivoted to health. For sure. Education, as we all know, is the foundation for people's careers, their gains, whether it's primary, secondary, K through 12, higher education, what have you. Mm-hmm. And so we decided that we would give our software away for free. So we're very proud now that we have 125,000 schools around the world. We also did a lot with, churches and synagogues and all sorts of religious activities, charitable organizations, so that because people needed to connect, and everybody was like, come use Zoom. And so for the charities, we did a lot. Governments, we did a lot. Enterprises, we did a lot.
Well, you brought people together at the moments that we normally in person get together, like Mother's Day. Like, how did you guys come up with ideas of?
It was just I remember, I think it was like March, April, May, we had like stand-up management meetings almost every day. What's happened in the last 24 hours? What do we need to do in the next 24 hours? And so it was, it was like just tons of things were happening every day. There's some great things that happened. I remember a friend of mine in Dublin called me and said, we need to connect the Jewish community here. We have a lot of aged people who are at home alone, aren't going out, can't go out, family can't come and visit them. And so they are using Zoom. They use it twice a day. They use it for good things, like major birthday events and stuff like that. They use it for Friday night services. They also, unfortunately, use it for funerals, which is, but on the bright side, people are getting married on Zoom too, so that's good. Actually, legally get married on Zoom. But one of the great stories is I was talking to my friend Michael in Portland, and how's his mother-in-law doing Myra in Dublin, and he says Myra is like she just can't wait for like her Zoom session to
she does her hair up, puts her lipstick on, does her makeup, etc. So she can be with her friends on Zoom. And so, you know, lots of good stuff like that.
I remember texting you a screenshot. I never would have imagined doing a memorial service, but you've done a memorial service with all of our family. And it you know, you can't be there exactly in person. It meant so much for everybody to be together and to be together virtually. But now, you know, since the beginning of the year, you have just seen explosive growth of Zoom. I mean, Zoom has become the verb. It doesn't matter what platform you use Zoom.
I'll Zoom you later.
I'll Zoom you later.
I'll Zoom you tomorrow.
And so what are you seeing since the beginning of the year from that beginning explosion of growth?
Yeah, I think that it's, you know, sort of Eric Yuan is our CEO and founder, and when he founded Zoom, he said video is the new voice. That was the preface. And people are really sort of coming, they really understand what that actually means. Video is the new voice. And so, you know, whether it's investment bankers have suddenly realized they can do, you know, transactions without leaving the comfort of their home. They don't need to fly to London for that one-day meeting. Look at like healthcare, telemedicine. Look at education. So people have really, you know, sort of understand that video is, quote, the new voice. You know, the myths of the past, Andrew, clearly changed, right? Because the myths of the past were, you know, could we work from home? Could we work from home successfully? In many cases, people can actually work from home more comfortably and what's the word I'm looking for? More effectively than actually in person. They don't miss the commute. They have better work-life balance. They can take the dog for a walk. They can see their kids off to school hopefully soon. Be there when the kids come home, make sure they get a snack, etc. They can take care of aged parents, which is wonderful. And, you know, and companies have seen the world over that they don't need to be, they can be geographically agnostic in terms of hiring. It's like, I think the number of jobs is like up 63% to be remote.
No, I completely agree here at Salesforce. We believe in work from anywhere, and we talk about work from anywhere using Zoom.
Yeah, the way to go. And so, you know, so as we pivot now, sort of vaccines are here, which is great. You know, we're vaccinating 2 million people a day in this country right now, which is like, you know, sort of really rather fantastic. You know, when you look at the surveys that have been done by various industry analysts and various companies, including your own, you know, the general consensus is 20% of the people want to work from anywhere 5 days a week, 20% of the people want to work from the office 5 days a week. You've got 60% want to work in the office 2 to 3 days a week. And so it's clearly going to be a hybrid model in the future. I'm not just saying that because of the logo on my business card, but I think people really get it. It's kind of like it's a sense of freedom. And so now people are beginning to think, you know, so companies are beginning to think, well, I'm sure Salesforce is doing this too. And we had that discussion actually at our management meeting last Tuesday, which is what is the purpose of the office going forward? Because work is something we do. Work is not a place. You can work from, most of us, many millions from anywhere. Work from anywhere. So what's the purpose of the office? And so most companies are coming to the conclusion that the purpose of the office is as a briefing center to bring your clients in, or as a place where employees come to do something together. And then when they need to do their work, they can do that from anywhere. And, you know, educational institutions are seeing the same thing. It's like they're asking, quote, what is the purpose of the campus? They can bring in lecturers from all over the world. They can bring in students from all over the world. And so the world has actually become dramatically smaller.
Well, what's interesting is it used to be when you were the one person video conferenced in, it was like, oh, sure, yeah, you can video conference in, but you were sort of on that wall, but you weren't in the meeting. Right? There was 6 people in the room, and you were that annoyance on the screen. Yeah. It changed because it's not just video anymore. It is true collaboration. Where do you think Zoom's going to go there around expanding collaboration like we've never seen before?
Yeah, we just released some cool new features, you know, sort of like the notion of a virtual receptionist for an office. So you don't have to have a physical, you know, receptionist there. The receptionist could be on another floor, another building, another city, could be at home, could be another country. We also introduced voice activation and the notion of using a mobile device to connect to a room. So you can take a shared space and actually make it into a personal space. And then, one of the things that we're working on is leveraging artificial intelligence. Because what we've seen and what the world has seen over the last 14 months is that it's what we refer to as a democratization of meetings. So if you have 10 people on a meeting, they're all equal times, right? So everybody's head is the same size. There's no hierarchy in the room. Everybody has an equal voice. It supports introverts and extroverts. And so it's the notion of, well, what happens when you go back to the office now and you have 5 people in the room and 2 people who are remote working from somewhere else? How are they going to feel? They're going to feel kind of like left out. So we're working on artificial intelligence to stream the people in the room as individual tiles, so we can bring that democratization back into the virtual environment.
Yeah, but this is good too. Being in person is great.
Yeah, and that's why it's a hybrid model. It's like, there'll be some of the time when you're together, and then some of the time when you're not. I mean, how many Zoom calls have we had in the last 14 months?
Oh my God!
Right? Okay. So, I mean, and we've had cocktails a couple of times over Zoom.
I had a great dinner. A great chef hosted an amazing dinner for 8 of us.
Oh, that's right.
And it was an amazing cooking class. So
I do remember that.
So I'm all in. I'm not sure I would have gotten that chef, normally in my house.
So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, look, I know next year this event will probably be in person. And I hope that we can marry some of the cool technologies that we just talked about next year at the gala, so that some people who might not be able to be at the gala
can actually, well, exactly. I did see your point.
Virtually come.
So the JCC can actually have their gala like they normally do, but for people who can't attend in person, they can stream it out live to their members, and they can also invite people from another country to actually be a speaker.
Absolutely, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking next year's event, maybe.
And events in general went from being in person to all hybrid. And event coordinators are now saying it's going to be a hybrid model in the future.
Yep. Look, I have actually, Australia has opened up. Big parts of Australia have opened up, and I've done hybrid meetings now, and they're amazing because you're not that screen on the wall anymore. I've zoomed in hybrid meetings, and there's amazing collaboration because now they're leveraging technology completely differently. So you're part of a big meeting, whether you're on that screen or you're in the room. And what you've done and what your company has done has really transformed the way we all engage.
And it's great. It's like, I think like a couple of weeks ago, I started my morning in Frankfurt, then I went to Tel Aviv, then I was in New York, then I was in Denver, then I went to San Francisco, LA, and ended up the night in Tokyo.
No Dublin?
No Dublin.
No Dublin. I mean, really?
And I didn't leave the comfort of my home. And it was awesome.
Was Rachel okay with that the whole time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like, no Ubers, no flights, no except in my own bed. Yeah.
Well, look, Harry, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Andrew.
This has been fun.
Being the person you are and a great friend.
No, thank you for being a great friend. And we're finally getting some sun here.
We are.
Well, thank you.
Hello. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Steve Abrahams, and along with Ellen, I'm privileged to serve as president of the JCCMW. Thank you all. Thank you so much, Harry and Andrew, for sharing your insights with us. It's truly astonishing to see how far we've come over the past year. We thank you. We thank Zoom for helping us continue to create community, even during the darkest of times. Now, one silver lining for me during COVID was to see so many people reach deeply into their pockets during difficult times to help the J, along with other organizations. And it wasn't an either or. It was my JCC needs me, and I need my JCC. One thing the pandemic has taught us, our neighbor's strength is our strength. Make one person stronger, and we can lift up a nation. I implore you to continue to think about what our center offers to so many people. Programs that reach across generations, support for special needs children and adults, Jewish education in a caring and comfortable environment for those who seek it, and a place that offers valuable dance, swim, gymnastics programs that lets young and old lead rich, joyful lives.
This has been such an inspiring evening, and I have the unenviable task of bringing it all to a close. Thank you so much for joining us tonight to salute our very own JCC Mid-Westchester superheroes. I know that our heroes may not fly in capes, although some of them may find themselves feeling as if they can do so after getting to the bottom of a Caldor-Politan. But all of our JCC Mid-Westchester superheroes create feelings of joy and happiness, as well as of comfort, well-being, and of community and belonging. They guide children along the pathway to adulthood and instill in them and model for them too the value of tikkun olam, our responsibility to heal and repair the world. And along the way, they lead our community to achieve great things, including meeting the needs of our neighbors and friends and ensuring their vitality. Thank you again for being a part of our Salute to Superheroes. Stay safe, and we hope to see you next year in person. Good night.